What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are excited. Welcome to our live post-game show here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, the Blogging the Boys Facebook page, and the Blogging the Boys Twitch channel. You can, of course, watch this live following every single Dallas Cowboys game on any one of those properties. You can also catch the rewatch. Maybe you're busy, maybe you're celebrating, whatever the case may be. You can also listen to this as a podcast. The Blogging the Boys Podcast Network is accessible wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe, leave a rating, write a review. Please, of course, make sure to check out bloggingtheboys.com for 24/7, 365 analysis on the Dallas Cowboys. The same Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys, who on Sunday afternoon improved to 2-0 for the first time since 2019. That's right. It had been 4 years since the Cowboys were last undefeated through 2 weeks of the regular season. A 30-10 dismantling of the New York Giants, a 30-10 demolition. The Dallas Cowboys start spreading the news, people. Win through New York. They outscored the Giants and the Jets by a total score of 70-10 through those first 2 weeks of the season. They look like one of, if not the very best teams in the National Football League. Again, we're at a very small sample size, only 2 weeks through the season. The San Francisco 49ers look great. The Philadelphia Eagles you can't discount. But nevertheless, the Cowboys look like one of the very best teams in the National Football League. And their most recent performance, once again, a 30-10 win over the New York Jets, is the latest example of it. Let's get to your comments, because that's really what this post-game show is. It's me and you hanging out, kicking back, gathering around the proverbial campfire, talking shop, talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Paul on the YouTube side of things says, how about them Cowboys? Big Bert says, stock down, red zone play calling. I do go through my stock report here on our post-game show, which I write about at bloggingtheboys.com. And I'm going to be straight up with you, Big Bert. I have no stock downs to hand out. Like I did last week, the arrow is pointing in only the up direction for the Cowboys, but we will have some context that we apply to things. Certainly, Steel Hero 68 says Dak Prescott, he played very well, clean football, pick up for 2 to keep the ball moving. Paul says, I believe that the second half they just went safe. I am fine with the play calling, up 10 to 20 points with the defense. Once up by the 3 scores, they just didn't force it. That's really my overall disposition as well, Paul, but we'll get to that. Kevin says this was a hard vote for player of the game. Micah and CD both had amazing games. Apologies to the Twitch and to the Facebook side of things, but if you are watching on YouTube, we do have our player of the game, our star of the game to be specific, with our brand here at Blogging the Boys. You get to vote every single week on the YouTube side of things if you are a part of the live show. CeeDee Lamb, Mike McCarthy, Micah Parsons, and Zach Martin are the options for everybody. I think I know which way the vote is going to go. Never do ultimately know, which is what makes it a lot of fun. So make sure you get that vote in. Let's see here. Kenneth Cook says we have number 11. No one else does. Again, that really does speak to Mike McCarthy, obviously. Michael with a great comment says, RJ, I don't know if you will see this, but I just want you to know the positive vibe and genuine kindness you bring to your commentary always gives me the warm fuzzies, just like a Cowboys victory. Thank you very much, Michael. That really does mean a lot to me. I love hanging out with you all. I can't believe that we get to do this and talk about our favorite team. The power of the internet really is unmatched. I should also mention that it is a victory, which means tomorrow is Victory Polo Monday. Take a picture, take a selfie of yourself wearing a Cowboys polo, Cowboys hat, Cowboys scarf, Cowboys fingernails, whatever you want to do. Tag me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa, and let's have a good time. Rick says hard to choose, have to have co-MVPs. Garrett says, does anyone else remember RJ saying that it was silly to think the boys would drive 99 yards and not be able to score from the 1? I think, Garrett, that this does play to what we talked about a moment ago with the Cowboys. I wouldn't say turtling up, but maybe going a bit more conservative in the second half once they kind of had the lead way out in front of the New York Jets. I don't think the Cowboys were trying with all of their very might to score a touchdown, and I know how stupid that sounds, but it's just the way that the game was unfolding. The Cowboys knew that they could kind of sit in cruise control. They didn't have to win an F1 race in Singapore like Carlos Sainz, baby. How about Ferrari getting the dub? The Red Bull dominance is officially over. Garrett says, stock up field goal kicking. I agree with you, Garrett. And in fact, shout out to Paul Beebe. Thank you for the massive super chat. Paul says, Brandon Aubrey MVP. I voted Parsons because Aubrey was not on the list. Also, how about them boys? I mentioned Carlos Sainz. I mentioned the F1 race in Singapore. Obviously, bright and early Sunday morning. One of the people who I talk most F1 with is our producer here at Blogging the Boys. And I will keep the producer nameless, but I will have all of you know that I wanted Brandon Aubrey to be a nominee in terms of star of the game, and I was vetoed. That was the exact word that I was told by our fantastic producer here at Blogging the Boys, that we had to veto Brandon Aubrey. My man, Brandon Aubrey, BA, went 5 of 5 on field goals. Put some respect on his name. He's definitely a part of the stock report. Thank you very much, Paul, for the super chat. Steele says, I'm actually thrilled that the Dallas stopped the run game from happening. That's very true. Rick says, hi to Watsamata. Hello to everybody who's joining us, obviously. Let's see here. Andre says, DC4L, let's go. Agree with that. The times are very good if you are a Dallas Cowboys fan. Let's get down to Anthony. Thank you for the super chat. Says, can we all give Mike some props for being the perfect fit play calling to complement this defense? Also, hopefully, Zach enjoyed his stay. Talking about Zach Wilson, of course. Let's kind of start here. And I think this is a great point. So thank you, Anthony, for bringing it up with your super chat. He's at the bottom of my stock report. It's just kind of the way that I was handling the names, obviously, when I was putting things together. But big stock up for me for Mike McCarthy. And Mike McCarthy, the play caller. I know that people are going to come away from this, and because this is the Cowboys, there has to be something that everyone has to complain about, or everyone has to pick on, or everybody has to just scream over. But Mike McCarthy, as the offensive play caller of the Dallas Cowboys, was phenomenal on Saturday afternoon. Kevin says, good evening, RJ. Evening here on the East Coast. Great game for Aubrey, but Parsons is clear-cut player of the game. I think that's fair. Here's the thing. Mike McCarthy had a comment, and I'm paraphrasing here, at the beginning of the offseason, back at the NFL Combine, around the same time as the want to run the damn ball line that everybody made way too big of a deal about. Where he said, he being Mike, and again, I'm paraphrasing, please don't think this is exact quoting, where Mike said that he had been where Kellen has been, or Kellen currently is in his career. And Mike said that, Kellen wants to light up the scoreboard. And Mike said something to the effect of, I want to win. And everybody thought it was the dumbest thing in the world that Mike McCarthy was seemingly opposed to lighting up the scoreboard. And what I think we have seen now through 2 weeks, in one of our writers, Danny Phantom, did a great job of articulating this in an article last week at our site. Again, check out bloggingtheboys.com. Is Mike is somebody, and we heard Tony Romo talk about it on the broadcast with Jim Nantz, obviously, great job by the two of them, and Tracy Wolfson, how Mike has just kind of seen things and done things. And I mean, Mike understands the tenors and the rhythms that an NFL game kind of offers. And by the way, great friend Bill Yuma notes, is that gray hair, RJ? It is. My wife likes it, though, and so that's how I tell myself it's okay. So she really does like it. So shout out to me. Stock up in my book, at least. But Mike, again, I think just does have a better read and a better control, a better vibe, whatever you want to call it, for this team and what is necessary on offense. We have seen that this offensive group, this quarterback, Dak Prescott, can lead the number one, the highest scoring, the top dog offense across the NFL. But it's about more than that. It's a dance. It's a rhythm. You have to kind of find that, and you can't do too much, because you can put your defense or the rest of your team in a bind if you are only focused on lighting up the scoreboard. So that was kind of a weird way, I understand, at the beginning of the offseason for Mike McCarthy to put it, that went over a lot of people's heads, my silver haired head included. Thank you all for commenting about that in the chat. But I think we are seeing evidence of it. And again, people are going to talk about the lack of scoring in the red zone and the settling for field goals. And yeah, Brandon Aubrey, kicked 5 field goals, but those should be 5 touchdowns. And no, I think that the Cowboys, I don't think it's fair to say took their foot off the gas, but I think the Cowboys understood that they had the Jets, that they didn't need to do too much, that they just needed to kind of put this thing on ice, sit back, relax, and get to 2-0, because you can blow out a team. You can win 56-0, but you cannot win the Super Bowl in September, on September 17th, doing that. The Cowboys are undefeated. It's 2 games, obviously, but I think that Mike McCarthy really is the right fit. I don't know that I would say he's the best play caller, the most dynamic play caller in the NFL. I wouldn't even say that about Kellen Moore, to be very fair. But I do think that Mike, as the head coach, understands the overall ecosystem that the whole group and team are living and operating and hopefully thriving in. And he kind of has a way of establishing the proper equilibrium for everybody involved. I thought that Sunday was a great opportunity to really kind of see what Mike McCarthy's offense had in store. And early in the game, the very first drive, we saw that they were aggressive. We know the Cowboys have that gear within them, but that is not necessary every single time that the ball is in your hands. So great job by Mike McCarthy. Awesome. We love to see it. Anthony says, lots of people who only watch the Cowboys on Good Morning Football gave criticism to Mike for that comment, but he proved it to be right. I agree with you. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say, I recognize, by the way, that I'm a bigger proponent for Mike McCarthy than a lot of people. And some of that is just out of defense for him, because I feel like I have to keep equilibrium in the world. But I do think that he is so unfairly criticized. I think we are seeing a lot of evidence of the fact that he understands the right and proper proper way to balance an entire football team. You can have the best offense in the NFL, but that does not mean that you win the Super Bowl. The best team generally wins the Super Bowl. And so, again, I think that Mike understood the assignment today. I think the Cowboys executed very well. I think defensively, they obviously dominated. We'll get to that with our other players on the stock report. But Mike McCarthy, serious props. I think that we have the best and most equipped play caller for this team who understands, once again, everything that's involved and, more importantly, everything that is at stake. So kudos to Mike McCarthy. Well done. Congratulations. We are so appreciative of you. Let's get to more stock ups. Where else do we start, though, besides Micah Parsons? I mean, what the hell? I mean, like, what can we say? I mean, what is there to say? Sorry, I'm keeping an eye on the Washington Commanders game for all of you, by the way. It seems like they're going to get to 2-0 as well. I am at a loss for words with Micah. I keep waiting because I believe it looks like Denver has one play to go. By the way, there's 3 seconds left on the clock. Let's just kind of make sure this happens because this would be Washington getting to 2-0. That's an important thing in the division, obviously. Russell Wilson drops back. The Broncos are down by 8 points. Russell's heaving it deep downfield. I don't think it's going to make it to the end zone. It did. Oh my gosh. What a tipped ball. Oh, the Broncos off of, some of you might be watching this in the background. Wow, what a tip ball drill. That's why you knock the ball down. I don't know. I need to see a replay. That was really wild. There was a Hail Mary attempt. For anyone who doesn't have it on in the background, thank you for hanging out with us. Doesn't seem like any commander tried to pick it. Just some weird football stuff, but wow, an almost potential game-tying touchdown for the Broncos to send it to overtime. We were a 2-point conversion away. But Micah, again, getting back to the point at hand, is just a monster. Like a monster doesn't even properly classify. Look, I'll be straight up with you. I'm going to be 34 years old next month, which is, again, I think evidenced by the gray hair that we're talking about here. And in my lifetime, I'm not trying to get out over my skis. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I'm not trying to be silly. I'm not trying to make a joke. I think that we are seeing the greatest Dallas Cowboys player in my lifetime in terms of years that I have been alive and on this earth, excluding the 90s dynasty, obviously. If we're talking about my conscious adulthood, if we're talking about the 21st century, let's kind of move the goalpost there. The 21st century, he is more talented than any offensive player who the Cowboys have had. No 2-point conversion, by the way, for the Broncos. What a shame. That was so much fun. The Washington Commanders get the 35-33 win. But, I mean, Micah is on pace to have a better career and be a more dominant player than DeMarcus Ware, which I would not say lightly. I mean, again, it's still very, very early. We're 2 games into his 3rd NFL season, but he is truly different. He is different than any offensive player we have seen this century. He is different even than Jason Witten or than even Tyron Smith and Zach Martin. He is different than players who will decorate the Ring of Honor in the future, probably before Jimmy Johnson. He is the exception. He is the outlier. He is the one of one. He is a unicorn. It is truly, truly, truly remarkable to watch him play for our favorite football team. Paul, thank you for the super chat. Says +7 turnover differential. And Dallas has as many points allowed as they have sacks after 2 weeks 10. That's correct. We are 2 weeks into the season, so it's worth mentioning that these things obviously change. But the Cowboys are +7 in the turnover differential. They got those 3 interceptions really late. But yeah, 10 sacks on the year, 10 points allowed. The Dallas Cowboys have a point differential through 2 weeks of the season of +60, which is unreal. Perry, thank you for the super chat. Says Micah truly embodies the essence of a lion, tracking down his prey and basking in the sun. The fumble was amazing. Like, there's nothing he does that is not at the most insane level of energy. I think about that, right? Like, you ever watch somebody do something and you're like, man, I just don't have the energy for that. Maybe that's my age, but you're just like, I couldn't do that. That looks exhausting. That thing, that sequence, that whatever that person's doing, I don't have it in me to do that. I generally, from like a physiological standpoint, do not understand how Micah Parsons can be that intense all the time. We are witnessing something truly, truly, truly special. And what he does, the domino effect that it applies towards the rest of the defense, is incredible. I mean, it is a lot of fun to watch. So stock up to him. Let's see here. Devin says, got so lucky. Both Surtain and Horn Jr. were taken. Both are good players in their own right, but I am so happy Dallas got Micah. I agree with you so much, Devin. Talking, of course, about the 2021 NFL draft. If I'm being honest, though, I was really upset because the evaluation for Micah was as an off-ball linebacker. And with what was the 10th and then became the 12th overall pick, that just felt like a reach. But obviously it worked out incredibly, and none of us are upset about it, in the aftermath and as a result of it. Bill says, I turn 60 next Saturday. Happy early birthday to you, my friend. All right. Brian R says stock up for Deuce. Deuce Vaughn did not make my stock report, but it was super cool to see him involved, obviously. See some of that juice and the predictable lines and things like that. Deuce Vaughn, in case you're curious, finished with 3 carries for 16 yards, but one of those carries went for 13 yards. That's 3 yards on 2 other carries. That's some quick math there. It was awesome to see him involved. Awesome to see Kevontae Turpin as well. Hey, how about the tight ends? Stock up to Jake Ferguson. The first touchdown of the season at AT&T Stadium belongs to number 87. Just a great opening drive for the Cowboys in a lot of different ways. And to see Jake kind of take it home was really cool. And look, the Cowboys just did this, what they did. I mean, I wouldn't say it was like this offensive domination, but they had their way on the offensive side of the ball, and they did it against one of the best defenses in the NFL. They obviously have the advantage of going up against the very best one in practice every single day. But Jake Ferguson was awesome. Overall, finished the day with, let's see, where is it? 3 catches, 11 yards, one of them being the score. Look, if you score a touchdown, especially if you score the first one, you're going to make my stock report. That's just kind of the way things work. I don't really make the rules, but in a similar sense, how about stock up for Luke Schoonmaker? Luke Schoonmaker, so far in his brief NFL career, has every single reception he has had has been a touchdown. Now it's 1 of 1, but it was really cool to see Luke Schoonmaker. And that's what I love about this. I mean, offensively, we saw 2 touchdowns last week for the Cowboys. They both went to Tony Pollard. In this game, we saw 1 touchdown go to Jake Ferguson. We saw 1 touchdown go to Luke Schoonmaker. I mean, then the list of names, like think about this for a second. And I don't mean to make Luke Schoonmaker's stock up not about Luke Schoonmaker, but imagine if I had told you, and I love the imagine if I had told you game. Imagine if I had told you that through 2 weeks, the Dallas Cowboys would have a plus 60 point differential, and that CeeDee Lamb would not have a touchdown, that Brandon Cooks would not have a touchdown. Brandon Cooks didn't even play in this game, by the way. That Jalen Tolbert would not have a touchdown, that Michael Gallup would not have a touchdown, that, you know, like, think about that. That's really crazy. That's wild to think about, that their point differential is that vast. And that, you know, the kind of chalk players that we would have expected haven't even gotten into the end zone 1 single time. But CeeDee Lamb, while he did not obviously score in this game, deserves a lot of props. Holy crap. I mean, I think a lot of us have been on the same page when it's come to CeeDee Lamb. Last year, we knew that without Amari Cooper in the fold, he would fully ascend into the alpha role. He really did that, and we all kind of anticipated that this year he would truly evolve, kind of go from that Charmeleon to that Charizard level relative to the rest of the NFL, and kind of put himself in the pantheon of the Justin Jeffersons and the Jamar Chases. And I'm not doing that yet, but man, CeeDee Lamb was truly dominant on Sunday afternoon. CeeDee finished the day 13 targets, caught 11 of them for a $143, had a 31-yard reception in terms of his longest one of the game, had that tough one early on where he just kind of hung on. CeeDee Lamb is one of the very best wide receivers in the NFL. He completely and totally embodies the number that he wears. He is awesome. I mean, again, like the list of things that we can kind of celebrate and point out and talk about and hype up really is very, very, very long. So kudos to CeeDee Lamb. I saw a comment. Who was it here? Let's see here. I wanted to get to it. Where is it? Who was it? Yeah, Bill Yuma says stock up Tyler Biadasz hustle 2 weeks in a row. And then there was a comment about it as well from Cineray3, says, in a too short voice, what's my favorite word? Biadasz. Even though I hate that everybody thinks that they came up with the name Tyler Badass, I will offer a serious stock up to the aforementioned Tyler Biadasz. Man alive, 2, that's right, a fumble recovery in each of the 2 games the Cowboys have played so far this season. He truly is kind of the quiet monster for the Cowboys, right? Like, we've seen that before. Remember, he had the moment at training camp where he just like blasted Sam Williams when the little scuffle broke up in the final moment in Oxnard. Tyler Biadasz is, you know, it's easy to kind of let ourselves get lost and wrapped up in Tyron Smith and, you know, Zach Martin. And we kind of have fallen in love with Terrence Steele over the last couple of years. And Tyler Smith last year kind of really bursted onto the scene. Tyler Biadasz is just that dude who just kind of chills, right? Like, we just kind of maybe overlook, maybe underappreciate. Kevin says, we've got a man alive. I did not recognize that I say that a lot. I guess that's a thing for me. I need to work on my repertoire and get a new expression, but thank you, Kevin, for pointing it out. Tyler is incredible. I mean, he isn't, you know, the best center in the NFL or anything, but he's kind of like Mike McCarthy as a play caller. He's what this group needs. He's great at kind of managing everything the Cowboys have. And again, shows that really amazing hustle that has saved the Cowboys in 2 critical moments so far in this very, very young season. Jorge A says TJ Bass was pretty good given the circumstances. The Cowboys, of course, are still dealing with Tyler Smith. That's the other thing too. The Cowboys are 2-0, have a point differential of plus 60. Tyler Smith hasn't played a game. Brandon Cooks didn't play the second game. Cooks CD, Gallup, they don't have receiving touchdowns, all this crazy stuff. And not only is Tyler Smith out, but Chuma Edoga left the game. And we're obviously kind of paying attention to, updates and things like that. We'll keep you updated, of course, at bloggingtheboys.com. But the Cowboys had to depend on TJ Bass. He absolutely made my stock up list to come in. And we had Chuma on the list last week. Apologies for looking beyond you. I'm getting the Sunday night broadcast on my TV just to make sure we're staying updated here. TJ Bass was, again, to come in and just, kind of not skip a beat or not have the offensive line skip a beat was really impressive. And we've talked so much this offseason and really this training camp and preseason period about how the lack of offensive line depth is this like epidemic across the NFL, and nobody has offensive line depth. Well, the Cowboys have had to lean on depth, not only in general, but at a place that we didn't anticipate, right? Like at the beginning of all this, speaking of Oxnard, when the Cowboys were out in California, if I had asked you to predict, which Cowboys offensive lineman would miss the first 2 games of the season, Tyler Smith would have been last, right? Like I think if we had power ranked the offensive lineman, the starting offensive lineman who were most likely to miss the first 2 games of the season, we probably would have said Terrence Steele because he was coming back from the injury. Then we might have said Tyron Smith because, reasons. We might have said Zach Martin because of the holdout, things like that, if you really want to go that far. And then if the conversation had gotten down to a point between Tyler Smith and Tyler Biadasz, would have said, well, Tyler Smith is the younger player, so he's far less likely to miss 2 games. But the Cowboys have very wisely, some would say arrogantly, I prefer the term confidently, the Cowboys have decided to approach these first 2 weeks of the season understanding that they cannot win the Super Bowl. They have said to themselves, look, we don't need to push Tyler Smith these first 2 weeks. We trust our team to be able to get a win, get the dub without him. And what happened? They did. Just like the Brandon Cooks situation this week. It would have been awesome for Brandon Cooks to be out there, and I don't mean this in the way that it sounds, but the Cowboys did not need him. And they knew that. The Cowboys knew that they could survive this game against the Jets, who obviously had a catastrophe happen to their football team last Monday night. And sure enough, the Cowboys powered through and persevered, and here they are. And those players got the rest that they needed for the games that they're obviously going to be needed in further on down the road. Thank you to a good friend, Mikey Montano, who says, thank you for the super chat, Mikey. Shout out to Arsenal getting the win for you. Just embarrassing what Manchester United's putting out these days. It's a tough scene for me. But Mikey says, too young for the 90s Super Bowls, just in time for Micah. Well said for anybody who's maybe just south of 30 years old. Watsamata says the power ranking commentary this week by The Athletic. Look, I don't want to criticize other outlets. The Athletic is awesome. For what it's worth, The Athletic did have, and you mentioned this, Watsamata, in your comment, that they had the Dallas Cowboys #1 in their power rankings. I write our power rankings at Blogging the Boys every single week. It's difficult. It's a lot harder than it sounds. I'm not acting like I'm, doing any like heroes work here, but it's not easy to rank every team in the NFL. And sometimes you do feel bad about where you have one and where you have the other. I was the only person and we also collect where outlets around the internet have the Cowboys ranked. And I had the Cowboys at 1. I went and collected NFL.com and ESPN and CBS Sports and Yahoo Sports. Nobody else had the Cowboys at #1 until I got to The Athletic. So I do anticipate that the Cowboys will finally surpass perhaps the Eagles, perhaps the Chiefs, perhaps the Dolphins. We'll see obviously what happens on Sunday Night Football, perhaps the Jaguars. Those are some of the teams that other outlets had to get over the Cowboys last week. Thank you, Brian, for the super chat. It says stock down for Terrence Steele, whose holding penalty overturned the Pollard touchdown, which was the only leg of my 5-way same game parlay to miss. I didn't need that $1,000 anyway on a $25 bet. Brian, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to give Terrence a stock down, but that's bold of you. And I'm you almost bowled it off, but almost only counts in, what is it? Horseshoes and hand grenades. But very funny comment. Apologies, my friend. Anyway, Colby says, not even fully healthy. Not that we or anyone else will be all season. That's very fair to say as well. Again, no Tyler Smith, no Brandon Cooks. The Cowboys did get Jordan Lewis back. They still don't have Donovan Lewis. This is, that's where, I love this comment from Geddes78. Says, who still wants Sean Payton? I will remind you that the Denver Broncos are in their first year under Sean Payton, and they are 0-2. They have yet to win a game in the Sean Payton era. I'm not trying to say Sean Payton's terrible, but I've said before, I think highly of Sean Payton, the same way I thought highly of Mike McCarthy. But a lot of people act like there's this massive gap between the two when there really isn't. In fact, I think there's an argument to be made that Mike McCarthy, even going off of just their Green Bay and New Orleans tenures, is or was the better coach. People forget, people don't like to bring up that Sean Payton went 7-9 3 years in a row in New Orleans with Drew Brees at quarterback. Like there was no thing that happened, no like kind of, 2020 Cowboys, 2015 Cowboys situation. They were just really bad for 3 years in a row. Think Tank Gallery says, RJ, did you watch the Chargers? How do you feel about Morgan and McCarthy play calling after 2 games? In Kellen's defense, the Chargers' ineptitude is a difficult thing to overcome. I don't think that one human being can do it. I think you either have to have like all 151 original Pokemon, or this is like a task for like the Avengers, right? Like it's not something that a mere mortal can accomplish. But I do think that we are seeing the difference. And last week's Chargers game is a better example of this with how many points they put up. Today, they just ran into a really well-coached team. I didn't believe in them. In fact, on the SB Nation NFL show, I foolishly made the Chargers my lock of the week. But that being said, I think that the Chargers are a team who is trying to light up the scoreboard, kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of this. And that is something that sounds like it is necessary or sounds obvious or sounds like what you would want to do. But there are 3 phases to an NFL game, to football. And so even if you have this high flying, fast, electric, omnipotent offense, that is not enough. And sometimes it is, right? There are teams who have won the Super Bowl, who have been the most dominant offense in the NFL, in the NFL that season. But you have to be a well-rounded team. And to be a well-rounded team, everything has to work in a symbiotic nature. You have to be a tripod, all 3 legs of your operation as an NFL team. And so I'm not holding that against Kellen, but it's definitely interesting to watch. I don't think that we should sit here and take a victory lap and be like, oh, the Cowboys are 2-0 and the Chargers are 0-2, so Kellen clearly sucks and Mike's clearly awesome. I think that we're learning a lot of things. And so we're only 2 games in and we have a little bit of data, but we still need to get a little bit more. Anthony Gonzalez, thank you for the super chat, says, why are wide receivers under a microscope to prove a catch with possession? Football move 2 feet or 1 knee. But meanwhile, clueless strip player gets tackled because his tibia grazes Micah Parsons and robs him of a touchdown. Injustice. They're actually showing that right now on the Sunday Night Football pregame show, Football Night in America. Shout out to Jason Garrett, of course. But I mean, that's football, right? Like that's I agree with you, Anthony. But the core of the game is, if you're touched, you're down, right? Like that's, we've all played, backyard Thanksgiving Day football, right? Like where it's just like there's even like 2-hand touch, like there's an element of touch that's involved. And so I get it. It's unfortunate. Great awareness of Micah, obviously, to try to get up and make a move. And it was awesome to see him score. It was kind of a similar thing to the touchdown he had against Chicago last year. But yeah, I mean, it's just a tough scene. But I think we'll be okay. I think we're all right. So, it's all good. Let's move on. Stock report. We've talked about so far Micah Parsons, Jake Ferguson. We've talked about CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Biadasz, Luke Schoonmaker. How about Dak Prescott? There was a tweet I had here on my other monitor that I wanted to read a moment ago. Let's see if I can find it or if it's too far gone. Let's see here from Sean Sharif, the great Sean of 105.3 The Fan. Everybody listen to Sean and RJ. Great name for a show, obviously. Tweeted, turnover prone Dak Prescott has 0 interceptions, and the Cowboys are one of 10 teams with 0 giveaways as a team. This is part of the McCarthy plan. Sorry to blow up all your offseason content at ESPN, at FS1. And then he put in parentheses, and yes, I know about the sauce one today. It was a poor throw that Dak Prescott made, obviously, that should have been an interception from Sauce Gardner, who was really, I think, great. CeeDee Lamb had a big day, and that isn't properly reflective of how Sauce played against the Cowboys. He's such a phenomenal player. But so, yeah, and look, I'm somebody who has defended Dak Prescott, and there are a lot of you and us here, obviously, but that doesn't mean that anyone who defends Dak can't acknowledge that he's infallible or that he's fallible, right? Dak is not perfect, but our challenge, I think, the Dak defenders, the people who have kind of been forced into these conversations, is find me the quarterback that is, and you can't, right? You simply cannot. But what Dak is doing right now, I tweeted this during the game, he is playing with a higher level of control and just kind of, I don't really have like a way to measure that over the offense that I think we've ever seen throughout his entire career. He's operating with a higher level of command over this offense. And obviously the quick timing to get the ball out really is kind of just, it plays right into his strengths and right into his wheelhouse. And having all these dynamic playmakers around him really works out well. But Dak was awesome. Again, a poor decision. And thankfully for Dak and for the Cowboys, it did not turn into something bad. It was mentioned on the broadcast. That could have flipped the game and the Jets could have taken the lead right there. But Dak Prescott finished 31 of 38. One of those incompletions, again, should have been an interception. 31 of 38, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, only sacked one time. And not to mention, he had that big run in the first quarter, obviously very early in the game, that 15-yard gain. He is again, we're seeing this really great marriage and partnership kind of flourish and ripple out into everybody else between Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott. They kind of both play off of and embody each other's strengths. And so, yeah, I mean, Dak is awesome. I really have nothing to say beyond that. David J says, we got points off of turnovers. Just because Dak didn't pass for touchdowns or run them in doesn't mean anything. I agree. And that was back to the beginning or the third quarter. The Cowboys had that Micah fumble recovery. And the broadcast, we've mentioned the broadcast a lot. But actually, speaking of, Trev mentions stock down, Tony Romo, not one of his better commented games. There's been some heat for Romo dating back to last season. But anyway, after the Micah fumble, the Cowboys did kind of go conservative. And a lot of people thought, like, what is this? What is that? And Romo actually mentioned that no wide receiver on the Cowboys on that third down even ran to the sticks. And so it kind of felt like the Cowboys were playing for a field goal. And I tweeted this then. I'm totally fine with that. And we've talked about it a little bit so far. If you're out to a lead and you're up against an inferior quarterback in general, but you also have this, defense that can swarm seemingly anyone, there's no need to play hero. We saw 6 days ago what happens if you, as an NFL quarterback, try to play a hero against the Jets. It can come back to bite you and you can lose that game. I bet you Josh Allen is super jealous of the game that Dak Prescott just played against the Jets, because Dak was not trying to force anything. Again, the sauce attempt aside, I mean, Dak kind of took the low-hanging fruit and what was in front of him, and as a result of it, the Cowboys scored. And yeah, they only scored a field goal off of that fumble, but man alive, I mean, if you're scoring points off of turnovers, that is going to work out for you more often than not. So I'm super fine with that. Clayton Lockhart, by the way, says, what's up, RJ? I just smashed the like button. Go Cowboys. I really appreciate those of you in the comments who are trying to drive up the likes and the attention. For anyone who hasn't, please do subscribe here to the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel or our Twitch channel or our Facebook page, however you're watching, or subscribe to our podcast network. Those things help us out. I know that content creators say them a lot, but they really are valuable things for us. And we obviously enjoy doing this for you. So thank you for all of you, for all of your support. Let's see. Watsamata says, oh my gosh, Dak is better than Josh Allen is not something people used to say out loud. I mean, I don't know that I would go that far yet. I believe in Josh Allen. Big Bert says, it's not even playing hero, though. It's actually making attempts to score. How many times have teams been shafted by taking their foot off the gas? That's the thing, though. I don't think the Cowboys took their foot off the gas. I think that it was a calculated, slowdown, right? Like, and just because you don't have your foot all the way down doesn't mean you're not being aggressive. I mean, you're adding points. You're adding to the mountain. You're adding to the pile. You're taking more and more and more. If you're playing poker against somebody, you don't have to go all in every hand. If you're the big blind, or if you're the big stack, you can bleed them out. Let those blinds work their way through, and you can survive that way longer than them. Put them in awkward positions. Put the other team in situations where they have to play hero. You survive because you have the benefit of having built the lead throughout the course of the game to that point. And we saw that, at the end of the game, or near the end of the game, the Cowboys didn't even have an interception. But then, it was raining interceptions. Jaron Kearse got one, and Malik Hooker got one, and Trayvon Diggs got one. And let's go ahead and say this now. The first time ever in the history of the stock report, we have a 3-way tie for one, set of stock or whatever. But, I mean, they all got that interception late in the game, so it kind of felt appropriate to put them all together. But that's what that was. That was Zach Wilson trying to make something happen because you're at that point. So I think the Cowboys handled that properly. I think they handled that fairly. And if our biggest criticism of them is, man, you only won 30-10, then we are in a very, very, very good spot. And I think that that's worth saying out loud. So congratulations to J-Ron, Malik, and Trayvon. The three of them share the top level of the podium for that piece of stock. Let's move on. Let's just throw some love to DeMarcus Lawrence. I don't think he gets enough loss, or not enough love, not loss. Tank is amazing. I mean, he is incredible. I mean, really just a beast. And so I wanted to throw him a little bit of love. But Nikki King, thank you for the comment on Facebook. I like this. Says best stat of the game, time of possession, 42 minutes and 15 seconds to 17 minutes and 45 seconds. Yes, only for the podcast audience, putting that in quotes, settled for 5 field goals. Shout out to Brandon Aubrey. But every one of those drives wore down that vaunted Jets defense. Again, that was the game. The game was a wrestling match and just kind of exhausting them. Does anybody here watch The Challenge on MTV? We have some Challenge on MTV fans. I love The Challenge on MTV. That's why I hated the logo that the Commanders came up with, because it was such a ripoff of the logo. But if you watch The Challenge on MTV, this is going to work for you. If you don't, apologies. But sometimes on The Challenge, there are these challenges, these matches or whatever, where people have to wrestle like a pole away from one another. And the game within that game is always just exhaust the other person, exhaust them until the moment to strike happens. And I think that that's exactly what we saw from the Cowboys with regards to the Jets. So shout out to TJ Lavin for helping me with that particular analogy. Trev, thank you for the super chat. Says, where does Ronald Jones fit in next game? That's a great question. Ronald Jones is now off the suspended list. Everybody can remember, of course, he was suspended for the first 2 games of the season. I don't know, man, because I liked Ronald Jones at training camp, and I spent a week in Oxnard, and I really thought that he could contribute to this team. But I mean, you're not getting rid of Rico Dowdle, you're not getting rid of Deuce Vaughn, you're not getting rid of Hunter Lipke at this point. So, I mean, it might just be a numbers game that works against Ronald Jones right now, and so that's a good problem to have. Shout out to my friend Mikey, who says Team CT and West, baby, love the challenge. It's a great note from you, Mikey, but you're wrong, like you are on a lot of fandoms. I'm a Team Johnny Bananas guy when it comes to the challenge. So that's just me. Brian, thank you for the super chats. This Pollard is great, but I said all offseason, preseason, we needed a big-bodied back Zeke that could get the short yardage runs. Pollard isn't good for that. Put in Rico Dowdle or do some play action. For what it's worth, Pollard did have the 2 goal line touchdowns last week. Again, things got a little bit sticky in this game. I'm not worried about that right now. I think the Cowboys, I think Dowdle is a fine option for that, though. Like if you really, or Hunter Lipke is an option for that. The one moment where I thought the Cowboys were getting just a little bit too cute was the handoff to Peyton Hendershot. I mean, I'm fine if you're experimenting, kind of seeing what's up. And again, you're in a luxurious position in that you can kind of do some different things. But yeah, I'm fine kind of delegating that responsibility to Rico Dowdle in the future. Okay, moving on. So we've gone through Micah Parsons, Jake Ferguson, DeMarcus Lawrence, CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Biadasz, Dak Prescott, Luke Schoonmaker, TJ Bass, Mike McCarthy, as far as my list is concerned. Oh, and of course, Brandon Aubrey. Next up, I think we've also done Jaron Kearse, Malik Hooker, and Trayvon Diggs. We still have, speaking of, let's go ahead and do it, Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle looks awesome. Now, I was and still kind of are or am a Malik Davis truther, but I mean, Rico just looks amazing. Rico finished this game, let's see here, 7 carries for 26 yards. Really does not tell the story. That's such a misleading kind of box score line. Rico Dowdle is a great, the term or the phrase change of pace gets said way too often, but Rico Dowdle is just a great second option when Tony Pollard is not in. I mean, he's an important part of this overall offense. And I don't know that I ever thought that would truly become the case. So kudos, shout out, all credit in the world to Rico Dowdle. Congratulations on the stock report note. Of course, stock up to Osa Odigizua. And I said this last week when I had Osa on the stock report. We talk about Micah and DeMarcus Lawrence and Sam Williams and Dorrance Armstrong gets a lot of love, and Mozzie Smith got a lot of attention, obviously, rightly so. But Osa is really underrated. Like if we sat here in our Tuesday show, the Writers Block, they do roster power rankings every week. Everybody should listen to that and read about it at bloggingtheboys.com. If we ranked players on the Cowboys defense, like how great they are to how, from 1 to whatever, I don't know where Osa would be for me because I think it's higher than I thought it was. Obviously, you got Micah at the top and Diggs is there and Gilmore's there, right? Like you got all these kind of things, but Osa is right there. I mean, Osa Odigizua might be the most underrated player on the Cowboys because in any other kind of era or time, Osa would be a household name. I mean, he would be the dude who everybody kind of knew and understood, but because of the just sheer magnitude of number of defenders on the Cowboys who are awesome, he gets a little bit lost in the fold. Osa Odigizua is incredible and such an important part and of the overall machine. I mean, he's more than a cog. I mean, he's one of the bigger cogs. It's like rotating the smaller cogs. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to him. Watsamata says, I have always wondered why we don't call him Double O. I think that John Owning, good friend of mine, good friend of Blogging the Boys, used to call him 0097. I could be wrong about that. I've always tried to call him Wingardium Leviosa. That's been my thing personally, but whatever. Trev says, can we just announce that our head coach is Mike Quinn? That's a good name. That would be that's a character in a movie. Just share the role and have no head coach. Instead, use both Mike and Dan, LOL. They're both cool with this. I don't think we have to stir the pot. So that's good. John Thomas wants to call Osa oxygen, O2, right? Is that the chemical number or whatever? It's been a very long time since I took a chemistry class. I think that's oxygen. Anyway, no, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong there. Let's move on. Let's move on. Next, besides Osa Digizua, who's left? Oh, Jalen Tolbert. I saw some discussion in the comments how Tolbert was or should be or should not be as a part of the stock report. Now, the box score says that Jalen Tolbert had 3 catches off of 4 targets for 18 yards. Oh, thank you, Watsamata. That was correct. O2 is oxygen. All right, so maybe we just start calling him oxygen from now on. But anyway, Tolbert had a really good game. And I know, and I did take chemistry, Watsamata, but I mentioned I was going to be 34 years old next month. It's in high school. It's a very long time ago. But anyway, Jalen Tolbert did not have a touchdown or like a sexy, flashy moment or a highlight or a video or a clip that's going to play on Twitter for the next week. But he was really great in what he was asked to do. He obviously played a lot more with Brandon Cooks not a part of things. And Calvin, where's your comment? Calvin says, Tolbert stepped up today. Watsamata says, Tolbert fought hard to get a first down that I saw. Trev says, Tolbert was great in pass blocking. And Kevin says, I have been very critical of Tolbert. We know Kevin. And says, I saw him make a few blocks that was more impressive than his catches. I agree with everything that y'all are saying, but this is what I wanted to get to what Calvin has here. He drew a key penalty to one of the best things, and we all talked about it, and I'm certain that I even talked about it here on the postgame show, that Brandon Cooks did last week, and he was celebrated for it, rightly and properly so, by Chris Collinsworth on NBC last week. Brandon Cooks drew a big-time pass interference call against the Giants. Well, Jalen Tolbert did the same thing, and when Brandon Cooks did it, again, I'm not criticizing Chris Collinsworth at all here. Chris Collinsworth properly said that's just a dude who knows how to run routes, who knows how to draw these penalties, his savvy, his veteran savvy, et cetera, et cetera. Like, we know all this, right? Jalen Tolbert did the same thing. And I think that he deserves a lot of credit for that. And that was a big time, important, critical penalty. So Jalen Tolbert has really come along. And so I know that these things aren't apparent and these things aren't obvious, but they matter. And great point from Paul. Thank you, Tolbert, for allowing Cooks to rest. He did. He provided that opportunity, which is big because I don't think any of us are worried about the Cardinals right now, but you never know, right? Like you've got to get healthy. And so if you have other players who can leave you in opportunities, obviously, or luxurious positions to rest other players, that's a good thing. So kudos to Jalen Tolbert. Final one, I have one left. I think there are 15 total, 17 though, counting the one I split. The last one for me, Zach Martin. Got a lot of love on the broadcast. We'll see. By the way, Micah Parsons just tweeted Cowboys Nation week coming. What is there to say about Zach? Zach is, we're past the point where Zach Martin is the best player on the Cowboys because Micah Parsons exists. But Zach Martin is, this is a crazy thing to say, but we might be seeing the best version of Zach Martin that we've ever seen. And again, I recognize what a statement that is, but he is at a different level of domination. And to have done it today against that really, really, really stout Jets interior, and obviously we, again, rightly and properly heard all about it, and Quinnen Williams and all this, they have gone against 2 great interior pass rushes over each of the last 2 weeks, and Dak Prescott has been sacked 1 time. That's nuts. That's really wild when you really think about it. You can make an argument that they won't face an interior front across the rest of the season like they have faced over the last 2 weeks. Obviously, they'll play the Giants again. But, he is just, man, he is really, 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 really good. So shout out to Zach Martin. You can read, by the way, my stock report at bloggingtheboys.com. I also posted on Instagram. Been trying to be more active on Instagram this year. I obviously love Twitter. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at RJ Ochoa. That's where I can be found, by the way, if you're interested in following me, whenever we're not hanging out here on YouTube. So RJ Ochoa, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. TikTok, rj.ochoa. Anyway, let's keep moving on. The Dallas Cowboys, now that we're kind of through our, let's close the star of the game poll. We've had this poll open since we started about 40 or so minutes ago. It's available on the YouTube side of things. We ask this every week for our live audience. Who was this week's star of the game? The options were CeeDee Lamb, Mike McCarthy. I know people will think that's lame, whatever. Micah Parsons, Zach Martin. And as I talked about, I wanted Brandon Aubrey to be there, but he was not. I'll pull the curtain all the way back. I had Brandon Aubrey as my fourth choice over Zach Martin, but I was told that Brandon Aubrey could not be there unless he had a game-winning kick. But whatever, water under the bridge at this point. But the votes are in, and the star of the game this week for the Dallas Cowboys is the Lion himself, Micah Parsons. Shout out to him. Without him, this team is very, 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 very different and very, 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 very much not as good. Micah Parsons, congratulations, star of the game. He was our star of the game last week too, so he's off to a great start. Daryl says late joining, love Victory Polo Mondays. Tomorrow, Victory Polo Monday, people get ready. Best Life says, does Donovan Wilson come back next week? I'm gonna say no. That's gonna be my guess, because we have seen the Cowboys will be cautious with players. So far this season, they've been cautious with Tyler Smith over the last 2 weeks. They have been cautious, obviously, with Brandon Cooks, today. And I'm not trying to act like an NFL game is easy. But the Cowboys, let's take a look right now. We'll have an article available for you shortly at Blog on the Boys. The Dallas Cowboys have, I would like someone to guess. If you don't know the answer, if you know the answer, please don't answer. I want you to guess. I would like everyone here to guess what the Cowboys have opened as in terms of the line for next week's game against the Arizona Cardinals. Does anybody have a guess? Anybody? Again, so if anyone doesn't know, you're not a gambler or whatever, this is the point spread, the line. Dallas is favored by how many points? What is everybody's guess? How many points do you think the Cowboys are giving on the road next week against the Arizona Cardinals? Let's see here. D-Day 2 guesses 11. Adam Blank says 14.5. Let's see here. We've got 10, 17, 10.5 is a common guess from a lot of you. Sarah, really bullish, says 21. Mikey says 14.5. I'll go ahead and say it is 12.5. Nobody got it, actually, of all the guesses. Nobody got it. 12.5 points. The Cowboys are actually one of two teams next week who are favored by 12.5. The other right now are the Kansas City Chiefs, although they are at home against the Chicago Bears. So the Cowboys 12.5 point favorites on the road against the Arizona Cardinals. So you tell me, are you rushing Donovan Wilson back? You know what I mean? Are you rushing Tyler Smith back? Are you even rushing Brandon Cooks back? And I'm not, again, going to sit here and pound my chest and act like we could beat this team with nobody, right? Because it's an NFL team. It's difficult. And I know people think and believe and want to say that the Cardinals are tanking or whatever the case may be, but 12.5 is significant. For what it's worth, Dallas was favored at home against the Jets by 9.5. That did shrink to 8.5. Again, depending on where you look, we use DraftKings at SB Nation. But so right now, I would guess that they are going to not play Donovan Wilson. Is kind of my long way of answering that question. Kevin says with the safety depth, I don't think they rush Wilson back either. Dallas and safety depth. How long have we dreamed of that? That's a great point. Let's see here. There was a point I wanted to get to a moment ago. Mark says the Cowboys' ninth straight home win as they defeat the Jets for the first time since Thanksgiving 2007. Terrence Newman scored a touchdown in that game. They start 2-0 for the first time this decade since 2019. That's a great point. Trev, by the way, think of the super chat, says Osa was a top high school wrestler in Oregon. Nickname. That's Triple O, right? I know that y'all were talking about that being something, so I really don't know. Paul, thank you for the super chat, says I will go out on a limb and say it. LT was the first coming of Micah Parsons, not the other way around. And I haven't seen odds, but I will say 13.5. You were very, very close. But thank you for the super chat. Yeah, I mean, I know people are hesitant to say it. He's that dude. He's Lawrence Taylor. I mean, again, you're talking about maybe the best defensive player in NFL history. Micah's, in terms of how he plays and the impact he has, he's right there. Kevin asks, what is the New York Giants San Francisco 49ers spread? While I'm here, while I have it open, that game's on Thursday Night Football. That's why I think the question was asked. The Niners at home are favored by 10 points over the Giants, who just got their first win of the year. While we're at it, I guess looking across the NFC East, the Commanders, who are 2-0, are 6-point home underdogs to the Buffalo Bills. and the Philadelphia Eagles, who play on Monday Night Football next week. Those they're mislabeled here. Sometimes that happens at DraftKings. This can't be right. Oh, here we go. They are 6.5-point favorites. The Eagles are on the road against the Bucks. So that's where things currently stand relative to the NFC East as we get set to enter Week 3. But yeah, Cowboys are undefeated, and for what it's worth, the last time they were 2-0, they got to 3-0, and then they fell to 3-3, and they missed the playoffs. So I know we feel great, and I don't mean to be like, tap the brakes, everybody chill, because I want to freak out, and I want to party, and I want to celebrate, but it can all change in a moment's notice, right? That's just kind of the way that the NFL works. And so I think what we've seen so far, it's very, very, very fair. I mean, it's more than fair. It's mandatory to have high expectations of this Dallas Cowboys team. They look like one of the very best teams in the NFL. I love this question from Garrett on YouTube. Says, what is the one thing that you want to see the Cowboys improve on for next week? We'll open this up, obviously, for everybody to answer. I mean, I think people, Garrett, are going to answer and say red zone offense and say they want to see touchdowns instead of field goals. I think I want to, like, this sounds like a non-answer, but I want to see status quo. I don't want to see regression. That's the improvement I want to see. I think that we're losing perspective on how difficult what the Cowboys are doing is. This is impossible. I mean, they've outscored their two opponents 70-10. They have 10 sacks. They're +7 in the turnover differential. They actually have also been very lucky, right? We talked about the Tyler Biadasz things. I would maybe like to see health, improve if you're looking for that. I mean, the injuries, obviously. Run blocking is something that can always be better, but it's very difficult to find something that we're not head over heels in love with right now when it comes to the Cowboys. Colby agrees with me, says, I like the answer. Consistency is key. That's the thing. And I don't want to see the Cowboys try to go back to the Josh Allen thing we talked about. You don't have to be a hero. We don't need you to set these records. I mean, they're cool and they're fun, and we'll tweet about it and we'll write about it at bloggingtheboys.com, and we'll all celebrate, but we don't need these style points, right? Like it's not mandatory that, you put up a Madden season. We're not looking for that. What we're looking for is for you to consistently be a dominant team and to take us places that, again, if you're around that age, we talked about that they haven't been in your lifetime in all likelihood, right? I mean, we're talking about 28 years this team is going on, not reaching the NFC Championship game. I mean, I'm going to say it straight to you guys. Like, I've seen the Cowboys go 2-0. You've seen the Cowboys go 2-0. Hell, we just talked about it. They went 3-0 4 years ago. What we have not seen is what comes at the end of this tunnel. So it sounds lame and actually dumb to say, like, you can't do anything to impress us in September, because that's not true. We want to see this. We want to see you not let up. I think a lot of us had some sort of like deep-rooted fear or paranoia about this Jets game because we've seen the Cowboys lose this game before, right? We've seen them be the big-time heavy, favorites and then drop a game. The last time they went 2-0 and got to 3-0, they fell to 3-3 in 2019 and lost to the Jets in that third game because they dropped it. So what we want to see is that consistency. We want to make sure you're keeping your eyes focused on the task at hand. There's no need for style points. There's no need for flexing. Just be the best team in the NFL week in and week out. It's a simple thing, right? Like, we're not asking for much. I like Janie's answer too. Says, all I want is no turnovers. I mean, again, they have gotten lucky. Luck is a real thing. It's not a controllable thing. It's kind of measurable, right? Like, you can talk about like fumbles that you recovered, and the Cowboys have been really fortunate in that sense. We haven't really seen the Cowboys be tested so far this season, and that's not a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think we're very pleased, and we just want some more. I'm somebody, back to my wife who likes my gray hair. I'm somebody who can eat the same thing a lot, right? I had chili for lunch, full disclosure. I'm going to eat chili for dinner. I'm going to eat chili for lunch tomorrow. That's just the way I'm programmed. I can eat the same thing all the time. All right. I'm not somebody who has to, get different meals and mix it up and, be different or whatever. So we want more of the same. I have found the bowl of chili that I like. Serve it up to me 17 times and then 3 more in the playoffs. That's what I want week in and week out. Yeah, good time. Ethan says, I'm taking this week by week. We can worry about the 49ers and Eagles when that time comes. I agree with you. I completely and totally agree with you. That's really well said, Ethan. So, all right. Let's see here. In case you don't know, our YouTube channel does stuff all the time. This is our schedule. If you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook, obviously today is Sunday, so we've got our live post-game show, which is what you're watching right now. Every day, if there is breaking news or something, we take care of it for you by way of YouTube Shorts. On Mondays, we have a reaction video to kind of discuss the game at hand, so I'll see you tomorrow. Tuesday, we have our live Blogging the Boys roundtable with myself and various Blogging the Boys staffers. That starts at 8 p.m. Central. We do stream that to Twitch and Facebook as well. On Wednesdays, myself and Brandon Lee Gowden, who is the me for SB Nation's Philadelphia Eagles site, he and I, we do a podcast every week where we cover the entire division as a whole. That's a pre-recorded thing as well, but that drops Wednesday morning. Thursday, we have game previews with various guests. This week, talking to my friend Johnny Venerable, who covers the Arizona Cardinals. By the way, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys, because I'm in a great mood right now, we got Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's supposed to join us, all right, here at Blogging the Boys. That is supposed to happen. Fingers crossed. You never know. These things are always subject to change, but we are supposed to have Tony Pollard join us. That will be posted here on the YouTube channel and on the podcast network, so make sure you subscribe. We'll have a lot of fun, obviously, with Tony. And then on Fridays every week, we have our Madden 24 simulation. Madden is 2-0 at predicting Dallas Cowboys games this season. They predicted the Cowboys to beat the Giants and to beat the Jets. So hopefully they predict the Cowboys to win every single game across the rest of this season. So let's see here. Let's take a look at your comments. Best Live says, are you on Spotify? We are. We're available wherever you get your podcast. So subscribe, leave a rating, write a review. Those things really, really help us out. Cassie Stewart says, we have to concentrate on one game at a time. Cards are up next. Go Cowboys. Agree with you. Let's see here. Brian says, I'm psychotic. Same meal, 3 meals in a row. That's how I roll. Jay Millard says, BTB Roundtable is my favorite. Kevin says RJ made graphics cool. I did not. The aforementioned producer who did not let Brandon Aubrey enter the star of the game commented. So I can't take credit for that. Senor Ray says OCC gathering info already. Again, trolling the nation is a very special thing. And I don't have to do any work for it. So I don't want to say it has to happen, but it is a big lift. So we'll see if the GOAT OCC is able to pull it off on Monday. Let's see here. Christopher Summers says, honestly, not enough live shows. Well, you know what? We'll take that into consideration. So, all right. My name, once again, for those of you that do not know it, wow, that's pretty rude of you, is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram or Threads at RJ Ochoa, or on TikTok at RJ.Ochoa. I do my best to be active on all of those platforms. You can DM me on Instagram if you have a longer question. You can email me if you would like, RJ.Ochoa at SBNation.com. Love talking about the Dallas Cowboys, obviously, so that's what we love to do. Subscribe here to the YouTube channel, the Twitch channel, the Facebook page. Like it on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast network. Those things help us out. The Cowboys play again next Sunday at 3:25 p.m. Central Time in the desert against the Arizona Cardinals. Check out bloggingtheboys.com. I know that there's a lot of stuff happening here, but that is a great hub. Anything you need to know about the Dallas Cowboys, we are on always. bloggingtheboys.com, 24/7, 365. I love you all. Seriously, like one love. Love you all. Let's have a great week. Victory Polo Monday tomorrow. Tag me in your photos. One love. Love you all. Go Cowboys. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.